Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel where I interview my very interesting friends. And because of quarantine, everybody is home and everybody has time to talk to me. So let's see who's on. Hi Ani.
Hey, Ani.
Oh my God, it's so good to see you.
Likewise, your eyebrows are looking good.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so
What
much.
kind of serum have you been using on them?
Honestly, it's just natural darkness, in my eyebrows. So
Yeah.
let's start off, introduce yourself.
Oh, I see you're gonna start with a loaded question. Okay.
Yes.
So, how can I introduce myself? It's like what are the markers of my identity? Right now, I would say that I am an unemployed millennial Gen Z cusper. But before I was unemployed, I was a Fulbright grantee in Morocco on a year-long English teaching assistantship. And I graduated last year from UCLA with bachelor's degrees in linguistics, anthropology, and Middle Eastern studies, as well as a master's degree in Arabic. I do not recommend following the educational path that I did.
Oh no.
I don't really have many hobbies. Take up something, becomes an obsession for like weeks or months at a time, and then I abandon it. So, like, the one that I'm doing right now is running.
Okay, that's really good. Especially nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
All we do is we stay home and yeah, it's good to run. But how
It
do we know
is.
each other? Let's start there. So when did we meet?
Okay.
Like 2008?
Our, okay. My earliest memory of you is when my parents took me to this Armenian lodge place for lessons,
Yes.
and you were there,
Yes.
and we are having like a Halloween party or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember you were Tinkerbell.
Yes.
I wanted to be Tinkerbell, and my mom made me a bootleg Tinkerbell costume that wasn't anywhere as nice as your Tinkerbell costume, and I was jealous.
Oh my God. Wait, I think my mom made mine too.
Well, your mom has certain skills that my
Yeah.
mother has yet to master.
No, my parents are both very skilled in tailoring and, seaming, hemming, all that. That's why I
Yeah.
started a business for them, kind of like a very small business. I offer their services to people in Palmdale. So I made a whole Facebook page and now we're making masks. So we sell masks too.
Oh my
So
god.
yeah, they're very talented. My dad has tailored for celebrities in his past. So yeah, they're really good. And we have had
Wow.
no unhappy customers so far, so that's great.
That's amazing. I always
Yeah.
wanted to start a sweatshop and make my parents work in it.
Wow. When you say it that way, does not sound good. Oh my God. Okay. So
Does your brother also sell?
no, it's just me. I'm the business head basically, and my parents do the work. So, but
Yeah.
I do the communications, I do the business development, like the managing, scheduling, all that. So, and I am getting my master's in business right now. So whatever I'm doing, it's really focused in my studies. So
Yeah.
whatever I learned from my studies, I kind of sort of imply it into this little business that I'm doing. So I'm getting I'm making my own experience.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
teaching
cool.
my own experience right now. Yeah, that's crazy.
Have you had those moments in class where a professor is describing like a concept in I don't know, like supply and demand or some other like business like thing, and then the class is learning about it through a textbook, and you're like, oh wait, I know this. Like supply and demand is I've it's like I've actually dealt with this,
Yeah.
like IRL.
Yes, yes, that's how it is. It's very fun, especially if you can relate to the subject you're studying. Yeah. That's why it's so important for people to follow their passions,
Yeah.
because otherwise it's just very boring, and that's why most people hate school. But anyway, speaking of school, let's fast forward our 2008 Halloween party to high school. We're not going to talk about high school specifically, but we're going to talk about the big main thing that we both did in high school. So,
ASB?
wow, I was not an ASB. I don't think you were
I
either,
was.
liar.
I was the
You were?
special election because they didn't have an external vice president.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, good for you. See, you're a top choice. No, the invention, girl.
Oh,
Talk
okay.
about how that started. How, because you were the head, basically. You were the one who found it. So go ahead.
Okay. It's a lot less impressive. I was Googling MIT, and I fell into this Google rabbit hole where I was just like probably on the 8th or 9th page of the search results. And at some point I came across the words Lemelson, MIT, and I clicked the link. Brought me to a page where I was like reading about high school invention, like invent teams, and how MIT is like mentoring them, sponsoring them, and they get flown out to MIT. So I thought that was really dope. And I was a bit delusional in high school, so I thought I stood a chance of getting into MIT. And it's like, girl, you barely passed like freshman year algebra. What are you like? What are you doing?
High hopes in high school, especially the environment we were in. They pushed us to strive for our best. So honestly, like, yes, I did believe
Yeah.
that you could get in. So don't even doubt for yourself.
Okay, at some point I'll show you my transcript and then you can like
Oh my God.
laugh or something.
Girl, I'll show you mine. My UCSD transcript. You don't want to see it. Anyway,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I read more about this and I said this seems like a perfect, thing to introduce to SOAR. I mean, we have a like fertile ground where for like young nerdy minds. We have a thriving robotics team. And I'm like, I think we should do this, but here's an issue. They had a deadline to submit and it was in like 2 weeks. So I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna have to get together a team, find a mentor, and come up with an invention idea and write like a draft of it in 2 weeks. So I needed to like enlist help. And at that point I'm like, I need to get my closest people who I know are good at this like science stuff. So I went to you and to my sister. Well, actually, I went to you. My mom was like, you should get Mary in on this. She doesn't have enough extracurriculars.
That's so funny. I remember we were the core four.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
And then who else was the fourth person?
Honestly, I feel like it was Michael and Scott. You, me, Michael, and Scott, right? And then Mary. That's when Mary came in. So it was core 5, and then it grew from there.
Yeah.
And then it diminished from there because some people weren't working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So once I got some people on board, I went to Miss Tebow. And she was new that year, but she and I kind of got along pretty well since I asked a lot of questions in her class and like feigned enough interest. So she agreed to do it, but I think she was leaving really soon to go on like vacation to Italy or something. So she's like, the bulk of this work is gonna have to be on you. If you need anything signed, just like email it to me and put urgent in the subject line. Otherwise she won't read it. And then I'm like, okay, this is great. We have a mentor, but we don't have a project. So I'm like, I need to get some people in to my house, like when we're out of school, and we should discuss something. So 2 of the early members came over and we have just like browsed ideas and we're like, okay, what if we create something that's like some kind of an engine that's powered by waste or water or something like that. So we had this like idea of it and we sketched out like what it's gonna look like, wrote out what this invention's gonna do, who it's gonna help, and then we submitted it. And weeks go by, we don't hear anything. At this point, I believe other schools were starting to hear back, but we weren't hearing anything. And then Miss Tiva calls me into her office and she's like, Ani, I haven't checked my email for a while, but I got like a email from the MIT Lemelson program that we made it to like the final round. And I'm gonna have to take a trip to Boston in a few weeks. And yeah, we messed up her plans a bit. She had to take time off and go there. But at this point, we knew that our invention was like gonna happen. So this is when we started expanding.
Yeah, I remember this era. It was exciting. Like we got a lot of money. Yeah. But that first invention they didn't end up liking. Wasn't it a water?
It's physically impossible.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's what they said too. Yeah, they said it's impossible. These two words in one sentence cannot be. Like that's what they said. But wasn't it like a water generator or something to purify water? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we brainstormed, we came up with new ideas, and then a tragic like story happened, right? Like during the time we were brainstorming. Yeah. So it was a girl who died basically in her own home, and she was sleeping on the couch because a drunk driver, like just drove straight into the house. So that was like a pretty big news during that time. And then we decided to do a bracelet that, detects like alcohol level detection. So that way like bars can pass it out. We wanted it to be stylish and like whatnot. We spent like a year on it?
Almost a year, yeah.
Yeah, we spent like a year making it. I was a communications lead. So I was like fundraising here and there. I went everywhere and like tried to get donations and
I remember you and Ashrati were like going everywhere and like meeting everyone.
Yeah, and that's basically spilled over into the rest of my life. That's what I do, kind of, as like a salesperson or business manager, whatever, for this clothing thing.
I still remember when we had to pitch to the city of Lancaster and that damn mayor tried to get in on our invention.
Oh yeah, he said he won't give us money unless his name is on our patent. So he ended up never giving us money.
I thought he wanted on the invention.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it is. I remember him mentioning patent, like, can I put my name on the patent? And we're like, no. And so that was that. He never like gave us anything.
That's when I started to like get a little bit hopeful. Because I'm like, this is a man who's like, he's annoying, but he's self-made.
Yeah, and I guess that's how he does it, by like putting his name everywhere. That's what we should do.
I thought that. And then I'm like, maybe he sees potential in this. Maybe we are going to make some serious book.
We still can. This is a patent that we have. Like, we still can make something out of it because, for another, 10 years? I don't know. No one can touch it besides us. I think we still could do something about this. We just have to take initiative. Yeah. And there's like too many of us for us to like all do it together. I think someone like needs to be the head. It could be me, but I wanna focus on like how to do it correctly before, taking over.
Yeah. Pitch you the Fitbit. Just be like, hey, put this on your like wristbands.
Yes.
And let's stop, alcoholism. Although I somehow doubt that most Fitbit users would have drug and alcohol issues.
You know what? We don't know that. We don't know that.
They seem to be a pretty healthy demographic. I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen.
You're right. It's for health reasons, which is why they should include a breathalyzer. Right?
Yeah. Although I have a hard time imagining like someone who puts extra effort into making sure that they walk like at least 10K steps a day, but who go off and polish a shelf of alcohol and need a reminder that their blood
No,
alcohol
because
content's
they're
getting
so
too high.
healthy. Because they're so healthy, I'm sure they can polish that shelf of alcohol. So we don't know. It's a big world out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we went to. I know you weren't there, but for the like the invention era, um,
Yeah.
we went to MIT while you and your sister went to Moscow. Um,
Yeah.
but we went to MIT to present the invention basically. And it was fun. Honestly, it was like a very intense like bonding moment between the whole team together. Um, to strive for our best and like, it was like we were like warriors kind of, and we
Yeah.
were presenting our invention to the world essentially. And then it caught the attention of the president at the time, or I guess I
The
don't know.
president of MIT.
No, 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 no. This United States. So Jonathan and Quanta went to the White House
The
because of the
science fair.
invention. Yeah, the science
Yeah.
fair. Yeah, and then shortly after that, we're like, okay, this is like big, big stuff. So we're gonna patent it, and that's when we were in the process, and it got patented in 2016. And yeah, so we still have it, which is great. It looks good on the resume.
That it does.
Yeah. Okay, but besides all that, is there anything else you want to add about the invention specifically?
I want to talk a bit about impact.
Okay.
Like myself, I was a senior when this was starting up, and at that point, I've already done my applications. I've botched them and essentially had my own career plan going. But as someone who had years to devote to the development of this invention, how do you feel that it's impacted your your future?
Oh, you're asking me. Ooh, I love that. Okay. Um, so for me, it was honestly the blossoming of my like socialness. Because before that, I'm sure you remember, I didn't talk at all. I was quiet. I was super shy. But I don't know, Tebow pushed me to like, she basically gave me the position of being the communication lead. Okay, so she pushed me to communicate more and be more social and like make connections here and there. So for that, I am very thankful because it's honestly opened me up to so many new doors. Um, Without that, I honestly do not know what I could have been today without her push. Um, and then just overall, the general like event planning that I did, the fundraising, it was a good foundation. Like it was a good basis to what it's like on a larger scale. So I've done event planning in college too. And now I'm like setting up actual like businesses kind of. And it's on the same realm, which is a good like foundation, like I said. So yeah, I'm thankful for my experience because it was great because I don't know, I just got like honestly, it was like a hands-on feel of what the real world could be like, you know, as an inventor and as
Yeah.
a creative, as a organizer. What about you? How do you feel?
I was really happy and I got to gain this very diverse set of skills. I was able to engage in STEM, get to learn about finances and business management. It's what other program can I have done in high school where I would have been able to pick up all these skills?
Yeah.
And another thing that I personally, it hasn't affected me much, but I've noticed other students is having that kind of an experience on your resume, or even that experience at all is something that's monumental. Like, I think we've had like 2 students from our group who were able to get admission to MIT who did write about their experiences doing MtM.
Mm-hmm. I think just one. I think just Andrew. But either way, it's pretty
One?
cool. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, that club is established now. Like, it is an actual club at SOAR, and they're on their like 3rd generation of students, basically. My brother was in the 2nd. So my brother had his own invention, went to
Yeah,
Boston,
and he
did
won
all
that
that.
award, right?
Yes. I think so. I don't know. He doesn't tell me anything.
That's amazing.
I didn't even know about it,
And
like what the invention was till he went to Boston. Go ahead.
oh my gosh, that's humble.
Right?
But one of the things that's really struck me about this program is how is, at least with the demographics of SOAR back then, a lot of us came from backgrounds where our families didn't have that much money, or if they were making money, they weren't managing it well. So just like having this group of like students who come from like economically disadvantaged backgrounds, and they give us $10,000 in grant money. I don't think that we were very responsible with that money in the beginning.
We were.
Like all those pizza parties. Come
It
on.
was not a party. It was a team gathering, okay? And we were actually brainstorming. Like, we needed food, right? Honestly, most of that money did go to pizza. You're right. Because our, like, the products that we needed weren't that expensive. But, you know, all the machines we bought, like the soldering, right? The soldering machine.
Yeah.
Soldering kit. Oh my God, I don't even know the words. I remember MQ for some reason. Wasn't that one of the gadgets that we needed to like actually blow into? The MQ sensor?
Yeah, and it was huge.
Yeah, it was huge. It's still huge. Like our product, like our thing is bulky. The end result,
Yeah.
our prototype is like bulky. But whatever.
Yeah,
We can make
I've
it more
learned a
beautiful
lesson.
later.
Yeah, in managing disappointment, because when I first imagined it, it was going to be something beautiful, sleek, you know, something that's more like an accessory than something that's functional.
Yeah.
And then we essentially created like an ankle monitor that you wear on your wrist.
Huge. Yeah. Oh my God. What if we make it an ankle bracelet? And people
I'm not flexible enough to pull my ankle to my mouth, blow into it, and then wait a couple seconds to see what the reading is. And I can't wear that when I'm going out. People think I'm on house arrest.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, we can make it trendy. Don't worry about it. We'll make it trendy.
How? Get like an influencer to wear it?
Yeah, me. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Someone will wear it. We'll get someone to wear it. That's not a problem. But beyond that, let's move forward to, I guess, college. Do you want to talk about college?
Sure, let's talk about college.
Okay, tell me. You talk. Tell me what you want to say about college.
Well, my college decisions ended up being rather botched in the sense that I applied to some schools, but around the time when I was applying, I found out news that because of my citizenship status, I wasn't eligible for federal financial aid if I were to apply. So that kind of put a damper in that I did not want to have to take out loans to go to UC, a private school, or CSU. And what I could have is go to community college while I was like waiting to hear for like my citizenship status to like solidify, and it would be free because I had the BOG fee waiver from SOAR that would cover a 5th year. So I decided to stay in community college. I was there for 2 years after I graduated. And then I applied to some UCs and private schools in California as a transfer student, and I got into all of them except for UC Irvine. Fun fact, I've been rejected from UC Irvine twice. I don't know what they don't see in me.
Oh, okay.
And then I decided that I would be going to UCLA. Why? Mainly because they offered me the most financial aid.
Yeah, that was my decision too for UCSD.
That and my sister, Mary, graduated from high school the same year, and she got into UC Berkeley and into UCLA. And my mom was overjoyed at the concept of having two of her daughters go to the same school, room together, share a car, basically like not having a life because we'd be each other's support. And Mary's like, Ani, if you go to Berkeley, I'm not going to go to Berkeley. And I really want to go to Berkeley.
Okay.
So no pressure there.
Oh, damn.
So I'm like, okay, looks like Berkeley's out of the question. And I remember I was like going through like the other UCs. I'm like, should like Santa Barbara? Nah. San Diego? Nah. And then I'm like, I guess, you know, UCLA still has that brand name recognition and it's huge. So I'm like, it could be, you know, my experience is going to be whatever I make of it. And Santa Cruz is never like something I've considered. And USC at that point, like they offered me a scholarship for half tuition, but I'd still have to pay like $30K a year. And like, that is not worth like the money, especially when UCLA has offered me like almost a full ride. So I ended up taking the UCLA offer. And I'm glad I did because I felt that at UCLA, there's more of a visible transfer community. Like there's honestly no reason to be ashamed of being a transfer student. Like I've gotten the impression that if I went to UC Berkeley or to USC, I would be like closeting myself as a transfer student and kind of pretending that I was like there for 4 years when I'm only there for 2. So UCLA was nice. I got to be out and proud. And what else? Like, I'm sure this is something a lot of transfer students or students who like don't have a good experience their first 2 years do. It's like I felt like I was in a rush to do everything to catch up, to like take double the load of classes because I'm like, if I'm going to be here for 2 years, I need to have enough experiences and enough knowledge as if I was here for 4 years.
Yeah. I feel like most of that stigma for transfer students, I'm sure it occurs to almost everyone, but at SOAR specifically, I feel like it was looked down upon that you take a 5 years to graduate. Okay, wait, and before we get into
it certainly
that,
was.
Yeah, before we get into that, I feel like we should clarify just in case like nobody knows what we're talking about. SOAR is the high school we went to, and it was both high school and college.
Yeah.
So we took college classes as we were going to high school because they were located on the college campus. And yeah, so some people would graduate, you know, as a senior, which is 4 years, and then take the 5th year just taking college classes. And it was free. So like our high school offered to pay for the 5th year of our community college to finish up and get our associates. And yeah, some people look down upon that. Like they were like, oh, I'm ready to get out of here. I want to go to, you know, whatever, a different city, different state, country, even maybe. But it's probably the easiest way to get a degree. It was the most like financially feasible, I guess, you know, because they pay for it and it's cheaper. And going as a transfer, I'm sure it was cheaper as well because you don't spend as long. I spent 3 years. to get my degree, my bachelor's, mainly because the associates and the classes at SOAR helped. But yeah, did it take you 2 years?
At UCLA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a third year to like finish out a BA MA program.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would have been done there like and out in like 2018, but I just stuck around for another year.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad I did. I feel like I had a more thorough experience than a lot of transfer students do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is something I would like to expand upon. Like when we come to SOAR, we're like barraged with like these stories of students who started out with nothing and ended up getting it to Stanford. Like we
Yeah.
had, what is it? Like there's some people's experiences they talked about, like Joshua Mendoza, who's that? Some guy named Frank something. They're like, look at them. They came into SOAR. They were, wide-eyed, like terrified freshmen that you guys were, and now they're going to Stanford. Like we hear
Yeah.
stories about like these successful kids, but something they don't really cover is that SOAR does have a very bright and motivated student population, but like those kids are still a minority. And I'm sure this is an experience a lot of kids who go to like prestigious high schools across the country, like private or otherwise, experiences that you like only a minority of your classmates are going to be going off to Ivy's, Stanford, Caltech. And like most like students go to like acceptable and like respectable schools, but it's hard to like cope with the idea that like that some of your classmates are going to be going off to like amazing schools, and sometimes you look at them and say, well, what's the difference between him and me? Like I'm no less intelligent than he is. Why is it that he's going off to Stanford and I'm staying a fifth year? And the thing is, like, it's not a comparison. It's like all about the journey rather than the destination, you know?
Oh, wow. Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, it is, because
Yeah.
what you're seeing is just the process. Like, yeah, your friend is going to Ivy, let's say, but what, like, how are they going to end up? What if you end up in a better state of mind or state of being or like situation, overall environment than he is in the later future, you know? So
Absolutely.
it's not like,
And something else I would,
go ahead.
sorry, I cut you off a bit.
No, you go ahead.
Something else I was thinking about is like, I made friends who did go to like those like very high achieving like private schools where, your parents have to dish out like college tuition starting at 9th grade for you to go there. And something I've been thinking about is what I feel like the inadequacy I felt in high school if I went to a school where most students came from upper class backgrounds. And the question is like, probably not as much, because at some point you realize that, what like what privileged students who come from like better economical situations have. So when you see students who come from like situations like you come from, like for like people of color, or they come from like a single parent household, or have immigrant parents, or they come from a household where their parents make less than like the average like income needed to sustain a middle class like living situation in California. So when you see it, you're like, if we come from the same backgrounds, I should like, and we go to the same school, why am I not achieving what they are? And that's personally, I think it's something that has affected me more than if I were to look at a student and be like, well, his mom's a doctor, his dad's a lawyer. They've like 3 generations of his family have gone to Ivy Leagues. It's not surprising he gets into this school and I don't.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true. But again, you're comparing. So
Yeah.
the less you compare, the happier you are, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like, it feels like an existential thing, but honestly, you don't have to compare yourself to others. You just focus on what you like to do, and you're gonna do well in that area. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
if you like it and you keep working at it, you are gonna be successful, which is something I've learned recently. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, you're doing an MBA program.
Hmm.
When you were graduating from high school and going into your freshman year of college, is this what you imagined your like trajectory to be like? And
Yes.
how many times have you changed your trajectory until you landed here?
Oh God. Okay, so my idea of my life basically, um, like when I graduated high school, was to be a astrophysicist. Okay, so I went to UCSD, majored in astrophysics, and after the first or second quarter, I'm like, okay, this is not for me. I can't do it. I can't pass these classes. I need to change. One of my friends told me about international business, and I'm like, okay, like that sounds interesting, so I'll get into that. I ended up graduating with international business major and a political science minor. Um, I just picked up political science just because, like, it was, I don't know, it was like I had all the classes for it, so I just like picked it up. Um, and then I took a year off, okay, and this year, not off. I'm not gonna say off because I graduated and I found
Yeah.
a job. Okay, I found this job, and your mom actually hooked me up. Your mom got me this job, and I hated it. I honestly do not know how she's still there. Like, props to her if she's able to handle this. But I guess
She
for
complains.
me,
She
yeah.
takes it out on us.
Oh, I know. Oh my God, I'm sorry. It's so much stress. I feel like I took it out on my family too, but like when I got home, because it was so stressful. Like, okay, I'll get back to that. But um, I essentially got laid off, and then I went back to school. So that was not my idea. My whole idea, my whole trajectory, I guess, was to be an astrophysicist and do research in like a planetarium or something. You know, I just wanted to. I literally just want to stare at the stars. That's it. And to this day, I still want to do that. But I guess there's like more to like day to day life than just staring up at the stars at night and studying what I can study with my limited astrophysics knowledge. But what about you? How did your life turn out?
Okay, I was always really interested in like brain and like cognitive sciences, and I around the time I was finishing up high school, I had like I wanted to go to medical school. Like, I'm sure you can relate to the experience of like having immigrant parents and then like only thinking that there's like 5 acceptable careers and doctors always on the acceptable career list.
Doctor,
And like
lawyer, yeah.
yeah, my mom's like, you should consider becoming a doctor. It sets you up for life. I'm like, yeah, it sets you up for life of debt, but you know,
Jeez. Right.
what do I know? I was dumb and I listened to her and she's like, you're smart, you should be a doctor. And I'm like, yeah. And then apparently she says this to everyone. So I wasn't.
Oh my God.
But I graduated, and when I was still a transfer student, I decided to kind of get rid of as much of the pre-med stuff as possible because I'm like, at UCLA, I want to be taking the fun classes. I don't want to be taking like intro to organic chemistry with like 300 other students who are going to like set the curve high and destroy me. So I like breezed through a lot of the like intro to bio, chemistry, physics until I got to organic chemistry. Man, I'm like, this has got to be easy. It's like 5 elements. And yeah, that class is so hard. Like, got my first and only C on my transcript. I'm like, okay, this is making me reconsider the med school thing because this is just the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Got to UCLA, and at that point, I applied as a linguistics major because I was going to apply as cognitive sciences. Only I found out that it was impacted, and I really wanted to boost up my chances. So I applied as linguistics. Took my first ling class, and absolutely fell in love with it. Like I went and I changed my major, like from like linguistics and biology just to like linguistics and anthro. And like eventually I started taking more ling classes, and then I ended up having to take a language class for my major. And we were prohibited from taking any Indo-European like language families, which Armenian happened to be under, and so does Russian. So I'm like, I can't take that and get easy A's. So I ended up taking Arabic. Really liked the language. I took every Arabic class offered at UCLA. And then I studied abroad. At some point, I'm like, I want to take more classes in this. This is fun. And also, if I were to do a combined BA MA program, I would be like able to stay at UCLA for another year, which I thought would be great. Like at that point, I've already like established the community there. I got to know like a lot of really cool people. I was getting involved with like really interesting research projects. I'm like, 2 years isn't enough. So I stayed in third year, did a master's in Arabic. And although I'm, glad I had a chance to engage with my professors as a graduate student and do like research and have an extra year at UCLA, I don't recommend the program itself. Yeah, I have like this dislike of combined and like joint programs now, because I feel like you have to focus your energies onto something specific if you want to learn more. Like doing like a half-assed year-long program isn't enough.
I get it.
And yeah, I constantly look back on UCLA and I'm like, what if I should have done this instead? I should have done that then. And I'm like, calm down, girl. You graduated with 4 degrees in 3 years.
Yeah.
You did more than enough. I'm like, that's saying a lot, because I know people that have been there for longer than I have and graduated with no degrees. So
Yes. Yeah. Good job, honestly. You've done a lot of work.
Yeah. And
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I feel like a lot of my decisions at UCLA have been kind of like that one Travis Scott song, Butterfly Effect. It's like you making one small decision and eventually like topples down like all those dominoes and like reveals itself to you. Like I, from my first ling class all the way to having to take Arabic as my language, to studying abroad, to doing a master's program, to applying and getting a Fulbright grant to go abroad. Like I feel like I didn't sit in my room and plan this out and be like, I'm going on this day and this time after I graduate, I'm going to apply for this and this and that. I'm like, just kept up in action. And when an opportunity presented itself, I took advantage of it.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's beautiful. It is a butterfly effect. Everything's a butterfly effect. Whatever you do now does determine the future. So.
Especially in high school.
Especially in high school. Yes.
Yeah. Like in high school, I planned out a lot. I'm like, I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to get these grades. I'm going to do this so I can get into these colleges and do that. Like it's so much planning, but not as much action.
Yeah.
Versus in college, it's like I've kind of found things that I enjoyed and kind of like followed that and kept eyes open for opportunities to go forward. Like I didn't sit down in the beginning of college and be like, this is my game plan. This is what I'm going to achieve. This is where I'm going to be in 5 years. It's more like, I'm like, had a general idea. I'm like, do I want to do grad school? Do I want to work? What do I think I wanted to do when I graduated? Where did I want to be? But still left it open like for flexibility.
Yeah, that's actually really, really good advice, because I was kind of the opposite. I did have a plan. I always have a plan for everything, like I had a plan. I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. But when it didn't go my way, I would get hurt. Like I don't know, in a way I was bitter. Like I was always negative. I was always like, why can't I do this right? I was being very hard on myself for not understanding, physics and like I don't know. It was it was tough. Like college was a tough time for me to like, refocus where my life is gonna go. So yeah. And I feel like that lasted until recently, like very, very recently. I've only like reconsidered like what I want to do with my life. I'm
Yeah.
still working on it, of course, but let me talk about really quickly the job that your mom helped me get. Have you seen the show Trials of Gabriel Fernandez on Netflix?
Yes, I have.
Yes. Okay.
Regrettably.
Yeah. Well, it's dark, it's heavy, but it's a true story, and it happened here in Palmdale in 2013, East Palmdale. So I do kind of remember when the story came out, but over time it got more and more popular until the series came out where it just like boomed. Um, and in the fourth episode, they mentioned my work, and they literally have video recording of my workplace. Straight up, I kid you not. Like they mentioned that one of the supervisors didn't call Child Protective Services, even though the kid obviously had like burn marks and bruises on him, only because they didn't want to pay for overtime. And to this day, that company is still like that. They are afraid of overtime. They don't want to pay their workers extra money for working overtime. And they give us so much work. And they complain about not getting our work done. It's horrible. I cannot stress enough. But when that series came out, that person got fired. So a little justice was served, but like not really. Not
So it took
really.
Netflix making a docuseries for a corrupt person to lose their job.
Accurate. It takes awareness. I think that's what it is. It takes awareness, but also I think that company is very corrupt. Like I think honestly they're gonna come after me if they hear this. But I think maybe because they were getting negative backlash, like they didn't want to look bad in the public eye, maybe that's why they let her go. But I I don't think it was because she was a bad person. I think because they were getting bad publicity. Maybe. I'm not sure. But as an ex coworker who they let go because I was sick, I had surgery and they let me go because they didn't want to like support me. Um, so I can go into that too. Like I really want to know if any lawyers are like if they are listening, if this is legal. I hadn't worked there for a total like complete year. I worked there for 11 months and right before my 1 year was going to turn, they let me go. Um, so yeah, I didn't even qualify for medical leave. So I took a couple weeks off. I had doctor's notes. I extended it for like, I don't know, however long I was sick for maybe like 4 weeks. And by sick, I mean like literally I was unable to walk. I couldn't put my foot down on the ground and I had to get surgery. And then a week after surgery, they called me and they're like, are you able to come into work today? If not, we're gonna have to terminate your position. I'm like, actually, I'm like learning how to walk again. I have to teach myself how to stand up and walk normally. So no, I can't come into work. They're like, okay, we'll like send you unemployment papers in the mail. And so I did. And they're like, but if you do want to come back, you'll be like top of the list. And I'm like, okay, cool. But I'm not going back. Like honestly, when they let me go, I was like a page had turned in my life. Like a new chapter begins. I
Yeah.
hated that place so much. I felt like I was carrying the company on my back. That's why my back hurt. Like that's why my back broke literally. Like, oh my god, dude. It was
Should
bad.
take it into court. Be like, you guys are responsible for my back pain, for carrying this company.
That's the opening statement. I carried this company on my back. Yeah, no. It's
And
okay.
now I
I'm
have
honestly,
sciatica.
I'm not tripping about that. But I am curious on like if it is legal or not. But I do not want to be involved in that place at all. And I'm glad. I'm glad I don't
Yeah.
work there anymore.
So have they ever presented the option of working from home to you? Like when you were,
No.
so right now the company has shifted from like an on-site job location to having their employees work from home.
Yeah.
How do you feel? It's like when you hear stories of how a former workplace, which made absolutely no accommodations for you on the basis of health, is now requiring or giving workers the option of working remotely. It's like the capabilities were there,
Right.
but they never thought to offer these to you.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show how it's proving my point. They prove my point for me. Like, they are corrupt.
Yeah.
They are just not, they're not a good company. Like, that's all I can say. Like, everyone who worked there too, like, was very bitter. And I see that now as an outsider. I see that. And the coworkers I have now, they're turning. Like, they're so stressed. They're turning into a little ball of stress. And it's like, it hurts to see that. You know, it just gets
Yeah.
worse and worse.
And okay,
Whatever.
one of the things that I always hear from my mom is she's like, the best way to know the kind of job you want is to work a job that you don't want. Like, from this experience, have you learned what you do want in a workplace?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, what she says, like, she brings up a good point, because without, like, the negative, you can't see the positive. So there needs to be a balance of both, for sure. I realize I do not want to be in that work environment ever again. I don't want to be under fluorescent light, fake lighting, and never see the sun for most of the day. I don't want to have a supervisor who doesn't believe that I'm sick, or who doesn't accommodate to my needs. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, horrible. I have a story about the day that I got, the day actually that I woke up and my back was in immense pain. I really can't describe how much it hurt, but it was my overall normal pain times 100. I couldn't put any, like, I couldn't put any pressure on my back. So as I was driving, I was crying because it hurt to press the gas pedal. I go into my cubicle and I'm on the floor, literally in like a prayer position, trying to stretch my back out. My coworkers come in, they're like, "What's wrong with you?" This, that. They make me go to the emergency. I text my supervisor. I'm like, I have to go to emergency. I can't walk, whatever. I can't, I don't feel good. And he's like, "Well, you can come back if you really wanted to." What the hell? I can come back if I really wanted to. I couldn't walk. How was I supposed to do my job if I can't walk or think? I was in so much pain. I couldn't think about anything but pain.
Well,
Whatever. Like,
he expected you to get into a wheelchair, pop a couple perkies, and like get back to work.
yep. Yeah, of course. Because honestly, this system we have here is very work based and not like human, like holistic, life based. And
Yeah.
I realized that, like, as I travel, and I'm sure you can relate to this too, like, other countries, I don't know, they're not as work driven as we are here. And it
Absolutely.
sucks. It sucks because when I get into when there are situations like mine, it's very difficult. You basically lose your source of income, and they didn't
Yeah.
pay me at all. They stopped paying me after I got sick. So I had to get on disability and then unemployment because they eventually let me go. But
Yeah. I want, as someone who's like recently came back from spending time in a country with like a completely different healthcare system than the US,
yeah,
it's actually made me a lot angrier at the system. Like, Morocco itself doesn't have a complete socialized healthcare system like a country like Canada or France do. But over there, it's very subsidized. Like, if I did end up having to go see a doctor in Morocco, as well as a dentist, the procedures themselves were like quite cheap, at least, when you look into exchange rate. Like, I paid about $60 to get a root canal done. like a pretty good root canal too.
Oh.
And then I did ask my doctors, I'm like, hey, what would happen if a patient came in here, they didn't have the means to pay? And he's like, well, the government would have to subsidize that. And I'm like, that's, seems like a pretty good way to handle things. Like those who can pay, those who can't, like they know that they will not be like put out. Another thing that's got me thinking about is why is it that we made the decision to tie healthcare to employment in the US? Like, it seems kind of illogical. Some cases our health problems would require us to take time off from work, and we could end up losing our healthcare and having to take on medical debt.
Yeah.
And that does not seem like something that's been like well thought of.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't know why it's that way. Maybe to keep people disadvantaged,
Yeah.
It could be, but that's like a big question. There's a lot of aspects to it.
Yeah. And like you come from like your family comes from like an immigrant background. Your parents and their siblings have grown up with experiencing both like the Soviet healthcare system as well as like the new Armenian healthcare system. Like from their perspectives, what did they think of like what was happening to you with like your workplace insurance and like trying to find a problem for your back issues?
Yeah, they were angry for sure. They were mad. My dad was like, we're gonna sue if they end up firing you or if they end up letting you go, whatever. But he never did that. Yeah, it was just, they were mad. Also, they always talk about how great it was in the Soviet Union. I don't know if your mom says the same thing, but wait, your mom grew up in Belarus?
Part of her life, yeah.
Yeah. And then, my parents were always in Armenia. So I don't know what the differences in like Soviet Union in Armenia and Soviet Union Belarus are, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
it.
Now you're getting an MBA.
Yeah.
What do you plan on using your MBA for?
Honestly, to be I don't know, like a head of a company. It could be my own company, it could be something else, but I do like bossing people around, honestly, and I've realized that recently. And I'm good at it. I can like organize people into doing certain things as long as, we have a collective goal. So I do want to have my own makeup company one day. But honestly, like I'm just going with the flow at this point. I love the school. I love the people at the school. I love the professors. Like everything, I feel like I'm in the right place right now. So that's what I'm focusing on. Just finishing school. We'll figure the after part out later.
Now, like you've been among the millions of students across the U.S. who've been affected by like COVID-19, and that's changed the way like you've handled school. Like, has this like shut down any opportunities for you?
That's a good question. I don't know because I don't know.
Yeah.
Like everything has moved online, so I don't know what I could have experienced if I was there in person. But I do have a job interview coming up, so everything is still in play. Like I'm still achieving my goals, so I'm personally good. How about you? How do you feel?
It cut my Fulbright grant pretty short. Like I planned on having I had other plans. Like I also had an internship for the summer in DC, and my internship was suspended. So that's definitely changed my plans considerably. Like I've definitely put myself on the right trajectory while I was in Morocco. And now it feels like I've had the rug just like pulled out from under me. And I'm just like scrambling to find like another purpose to my life and like applying to jobs and like trying to deal with like the hiring freeze. But, you know, at least I'm surrounded by family. I'm relatively healthy. And I not letting myself like fall into like a pit of despair over this because like it's temporary.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna like it'll be over.
Yeah.
Maybe not soon, but it'll be over. In the meantime, I'm just like thinking of like ways to like think kind of help other people dealing with this. So I've definitely been kind of like using like the internet as a medium. Like I've created a mailing list for of jobs and internships for students.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on setting up a college consulting service for students of like immigrant and like disenfranchised backgrounds. And other than that, I've been diligently applying to work.
That's really
and
neat.
Researching graduate schools, yeah. Trying to make sure that I'm not wasting my time.
No, at some point you have to realize that you don't need something external. You know, you don't need to do something to have a purpose in life. You can find it within yourself and just like live happy. Just do whatever it is that you want to do, but happily, you know, not always striving for that purpose or,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Now, I'm not too familiar with like MBA programs, but like the sense that I've gotten from like hearing about this from people that are doing it is that it's like a 2-year long networking event.
That's
Do you feel
actually,
like that's
it
true, or
could
do you
be.
feel like
Sorry for cutting you off, but yeah, it could be.
no worries.
Um, but obviously I'm here online, so not really. But um, yeah, I think the professors like they encourage that. They encourage networking. They encourage like do like strive like you yourself putting in effort to do whatever it is you want to do. So for that reason,
Yeah,
that's why I love that school because they're just so I don't know. They take you as a person into consideration. You're not just a number, which is what I felt
yeah,
at UCSD. But at FITM, everything is like I don't know, everything's great. But it's mine is a 1 year program, so I don't have the privilege of networking for another year. So
yeah.
yeah.
And like in terms of your program, do you feel like you've picked up on like useful skill sets?
100%. Yeah. I am learning things every day. And even the smallest assignments, like I learn a lot with it. And I can incorporate what I learn into my business, like I said, the sweatshop business
Yeah.
that you mentioned. But
No,
yeah,
you should like embrace it. Just be like, yeah, we're an ethical sweatshop. We pay above minimum wage here, and we give frequent water breaks.
oh God. Oh my God. Okay. Whatever. But
Do you have
what,
advice?
yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Do you have advice for students who are thinking about MBA programs or who are considering whether like it would be a good fit for their career trajectories?
Are you
Like,
considering an MBA program?
I am not, but one of my sisters is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would recommend it. Depends on where you go, I guess, and how you feel at the school, because at this point you're a graduate. You're not an undergrad. So as a graduate student, you have to take more, and I'm sure you know this. You've been a graduate student. You're more involved, you know. You have to actually participate and actually like get hands-on feel for what it is you're studying. So if they think it's the right path for them, then yeah, I recommend it for sure because it's amazing. Most of the people who are able to climb the corporate ladder are MBA graduates, like they have MBAs. So yeah, I recommend it.
Alrighty.
What do you want to go to grad school for?
I want to continue on linguistics. I've
Mm,
really enjoyed it, and the thing of like the studying the science of language is that language is like part of like so many different disciplines. Like it could be anything from like computational linguistics all the way into to like studying ESL to like doing research on neuroscience, because like language like permeates every bit of like the human experience. So I would like to like kind of build on that and eventually either look into building up a career in like academia, or kind of like running in the opposite direction and going into like maybe consulting or like working in tech.
yeah, that'll be great. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Keep studying. Um, let's move
Yeah.
on really quickly to your time in Morocco, or honestly, whatever it is you want to share.
Yes.
Because I remember last time when you told me about I guess like the misogyny that you were experiencing. That was like that struck out to me. But talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. I'm listening.
All right. Well, overall, I'd say my experience in Morocco has been like pretty positive. I have a Fulbright experience
Yeah.
because I felt like I was able to like explore around the country and get to like become close and familiar with a culture that's not my own. I am very grateful for the Fulbright program for giving me freedom, but also being there, because sometimes I do fuck it up and I need them to like fix my messes for me. Like I've gotten the chance to travel to every single province in Morocco, and it's a country about the size of California, and it's very diverse in its cultural and like linguistic like identity. So it's like going from like the north in Tangier all the way to the south in the Sahara. You feel like you're like traveling across a continent. I've loved the opportunity to become better at speaking in French and Moroccan Arabic. I've made friends with amazing and like motivated people through Fulbright, and had a chance to get to like know some pretty remarkable Moroccans. But there are some things that have blackened my experience there, and a lot of it is like the like experiences of misogyny and like sex-based discrimination. Now it's like I've grown up in like a Western country since I was 10 years old. Like my experiences as a Western woman of misogyny have like largely been like pretty like like pretty unnoticed. It's like one of those experiences where it's like you have someone say something misogynistic to you, but you don't like notice it outright, and then like 2 or 3 days later, you're like, wait, that was misogyny? It's like someone harassed me, and I didn't even notice. It's, you know, mostly takes the form of like microaggressions and just like small behind the scenes stuff that you don't really pick up on unless you concentrate. Versus in Morocco, it's like it's quite outright. Like they're like it's a like in many ways a patriarchal country. So there's like it's governed by like a strict gender code where it's like women and men have these roles and they have to like occupy these roles. For women, a lot of this like is centered around modesty, both in dress and in behavior. Then there's also things you can do as a woman and things you can't do as a woman. Then there's like the dual experience of being a woman in Morocco as well as a Western woman. Like there's certainly an idea that Western women are looser than Moroccan women, therefore they should not be afforded the same respect. Like myself, I'm quite fair, but in Morocco and many parts of it, I was able to like fly under the radar and pass as a Moroccan, especially if I kept my mouth shut and like dressed kind of like the local women do. So in some cases, I was able to like kind of get away with like having misogyny thrown at me as a Western woman. It's usually in the form of catcalling, people following me, people like appearing to be like friendly and then attempting to get my phone number or something else from me and getting angry when I wasn't interested. But in some cases, like especially going to the markets or to other places, I was able to fly under the radar and kind of avoid having that thrown at me. A lot of my other friends who went to Morocco who are not able to pass were like barraged with these like crude messages in French, German, and sometimes in English from random men. Like for them, I think the experience is a lot more like pernicious than it was for me. Another thing that's kind of affected me there is that in some cases when we were traveling, we were recommended to go out with a male friend, which to me, it's like I've grown up in a house full of women. We've been pretty self-sufficient at taking care of ourselves without any men. So it's like the idea that I would have to go out at night with a male friend for protection seemed really like regressive to me. And other than that, like, I don't think there's a single woman in Morocco who can say that she has not been sexually harassed in any way. Before I went, I was like pretty scared of like sexual harassment. Like, you know, it's happened to most women in the States, but like before I went, I'm sorry, I'm being really inarticulate here. Before I went, if someone were to catcall me, that's something that would dwell on my mind for like weeks afterwards. I'd be like, am I safe? What did I do? Versus in Morocco, it's like, you know, it's like I would get catcalled. I'd be like, okay, whatever. It's a relief. At least they didn't follow me this time.
Oh God.
Because that's terrifying.
What are some of the precautions you took to prevent
Okay, this is going to sound incredibly anti-feminist of me, but dressing very modestly. It's like wearing clothes that aren't tight-fitting and wearing sleeves. That's helpful. Another thing that I've also taken into account is wearing like a strong crossbody bag, because bag snatching are like the most common form of like theft there. Another thing is basically look at how like the local women dress and kind of dress like them. Like the first part of my Fulbright grant, I was in Casablanca, and over there it's like I was in a modern like metropolitan area, so it wasn't difficult like modeling what the local youth were wearing. And then I went to Agadir, which was like a bit more of a conservative town, and over there it's like there's way more women wearing headscarves, way more women who wear like traditional clothes. So I've kind of adapted to wearing looser fitting clothes and wearing like longer sleeves and carrying a scarf or something else on me. So at least I would look like I'm being like not trying to look like a Western tourist. Something else that I've noticed it helps is if I'm hanging out with a group of other girls, having at least one guy in a mix helps deter like a lot of unwanted attention. Like I've walked around with like alone with other girls, and sometimes in some cases with like male friends. And the only thing that I've noticed really stops a lot of the harassment is if there's a male friend in my vicinity, because then they think that he is going to like fight for my honor or something like that. Another thing that I've noticed is that being guarded around people, especially men. Like I don't divulge a lot of like information about myself. If someone I don't know asks about me, like if it's an older woman or like a girl my age or someone like that, and they ask like, oh, what's your deal? I'll give them like my whole unabridged biography of how I ended up there, versus like a guy, if he tries to get my attention and he asks like, you know, who are you, where are you from, I give like you know, curt, short responses. But yeah, it's.
Oh, I was gonna say, what about the laundry situation? Are you willing to dive into that?
Okay, let me give some context to this.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a in Morocco, washing machines are pretty common, but nobody has a drying machine. So it's very European style in that you have to put up your laundry out of line outside of your apartment for all your neighbors to see your like unmentionables. So at some point in Morocco, I picked up a stalker who thought that he was being like very romantic Casanova type by being like leaving me notes and this shit and like following me around. And I was terrified. So then I started to like kind of get information as to like who he is, how he like knows who I am. And then I found out he lives in a neighborhood. Mm. So I straight up like would like try to avoid his attention as much as I could, but it wasn't helpful. So what I just did was I went to the store. I bought a pack of men's underwear. And every time I do laundry, I'd throw like a couple of boxer briefs in my laundry and then hang it up outside to make it look like there's a man living with me.
And this has proved him to stop harassing you in a way?
It's lessened the harassment in that he no longer left me notes under my door.
Mm. Okay.
But yeah, it's something I feel like I should not have to like do ever.
Yeah, you are literally going out of your way to do something to prevent that someone from continuously like giving you unwanted attention, basically. So
yeah,
this is just extra stress that's like being thrown your way for no reason, and you have to literally again go out of your way to do something about it. I'm sure you're busy being a teacher, you know, doing your daily activities in Morocco, and then this guy is just like adding more to it. Like, I'm sorry you have to go through that.
Yeah, well, it makes for a fun story to tell at dinner parties, so.
Yeah, I guess, but I'm sure being in it was not a good experience.
No, it was not. But as I've said before, I feel like my experiences like of harassment in Morocco have been like relatively tame compared to the experiences of some other Fulbright scholars. Like I know a girl who like went through like an awful situation with someone she trusted, and some other people whose harassments have been like a lot more pernicious than it is for me. At least I know for me, it's like if I dress a certain way, I can like turn off most of like the casual harassment I get versus other girls who have like blonde hair or blue eyes or like much fairer skin, or they're much taller than me to the point where they can't like pass as Moroccans. But like this has not darkened my experience to the point where I considered ending my grant early and coming home.
Yeah.
Like I've learned to like focus on the like the good part of Morocco, and it's like, you know, getting to like the nightlife, the cultural engagement, learning languages. It's like bonding with my Fulbright cohort and getting to travel all across the country.
Yeah. That's great. That's actually a great experience. Yeah. But that's good. That's good that you're focusing on the positives and not Yeah, no, that's good. And this, in a way, it's helping you take more, what's the word? Getting thicker skin in a way, you know, for what the future
Exactly.
holds. So
Like
there's positives
I've
in everything, even in negatives. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's like one of the things that I've first realized, like when I came back and I started like going outside and running, and I'm like, what if someone like stops and says something or stares or something like that? I'm like, girl, this is like a daily occurrence in Morocco. Like, and you like were fine over there. It's like, what are they gonna do here?
Do you think it's worse or what, in your opinion?
Here, I think it's a lot more hidden. I think it's a lot less explicit.
Yeah,
Like I've certainly never been harassed while I was walking through Trader Joe's.
of course. But
But over here, it's
yeah,
it's
this.
like
Sorry, go ahead.
like the worst I've gotten here is like someone yelling out like cat calls from their car,
Mm.
and it's like I've been through that so many times in Morocco that I'm like, you know what? I've been through this like before. Nothing happened to me. I'll probably just feel bad for the rest of the day and then I'll get over it.
I'm still so sorry. I know, dude. This is so. It's horrible that this happens and like it ruins people's days, you know. And the fact that they don't see what's wrong with that. But that's a whole other story. We can
Yeah.
debate
Wait.
that later. But do you want to talk about the Facebook situation or no?
I've had multiple Facebook situations.
The one where they relocated you?
Yeah. So my the first part of my grant was in Casablanca, where I was teaching at a large public like school. Like most of my lecture classes were like 200 plus, and students get curious about you. And as a professor, especially like someone who is like around their age, I wanted to like maintain a degree of separation between us. And some students did find like my Facebook and went through it and found some things about me that like they thought would be fun to share with other students. So this turned into them being unable to focus on my class to the point where I would be asking them questions about the lesson, and someone would be raising their hand, like, "Teacher, what does this work? Like, why does he, why are you like that?" And I'm like, um, "Who said anything about this?" They're like, "We saw on your Facebook that you like change your profile pic to something for to like celebrate gay marriage being legalized in the US." I'm like, who hasn't? Who has a Facebook and hasn't like added that banner, first of all? So it was definitely an awkward experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point where I've asked faculty and staff for help managing this, and their response was it was my fault for letting this happen. So at this point I felt like I was at my wit's end. Like I've told students off. I'm like, you need to, when you're in school, you need to concentrate on what I'm teaching, and like attempt to find the students who did like search up my private information like that. And it got to the point where I felt like I done all I could do, and I requested to be moved
Mm-hmm.
to another part of the country or just be given another placement. And around that time, one of my Fulbright cohort people ended up cutting her grant early and going back home. So there was a spot open in Agadir, and they ended up sending me there.
Hmm. And was it better, in your opinion, like the experience in Agadir versus where you were?
Mm-hmm.
It was better?
It was calmer. Like
Yeah.
I felt like I had a chance to like engage with Moroccan culture more. The placement, like my new university was much better. It's smaller, it's more selective. The students there are like a lot easier to manage. And I was no longer on a solo placement because I was there and I lived literally next door to one of my Fulbright best friends.
Mm.
So I had like the community that I felt like I lacked being alone in Casablanca. I had like a much better university to teach at. And I was in a city that was in the south, was like a slower pace of life. Like there was like less pressure on me. And my new apartment was much nicer. So
And I think you gave me a tour, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it was good. And
The
then
only thing,
no, go ahead. My
sorry,
bad.
I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say, what happened after the coronavirus thing? Did they kick you out of the country basically, or?
It was handled in a really unusual way. And by unusual, I mean terrible. In that other countries started evacuating their Fulbrighters before Morocco did, and then we got an email from our headquarters in Rabat, and they're like, "Okay, guys, you guys can either stay in the country or you can voluntarily evacuate right now." And at that point, I was confused about what I wanted to do because I was unsure what my situation would be like in the United States if I came back. Like in Morocco, at least I had an apartment that was fully stocked. I had health insurance and I had money. It's like $1,000 goes a long way in Morocco. So I'm like, if anything happens, I think I'd be fine, quarantining here. But I don't know, I had this nagging feeling. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that I wasn't satisfied with my decision. And my BFF roommate, Gwen, she was intent on staying. So I'm like, okay, I figure if she's making that decision, I'll also stay because we decided we're going to make this, we're going to be making decisions together because it'd be logistically and emotionally easier if we were to like have to leave together. Also, we pay our rents together. So if I were to leave, she'd have to cover my end of the rent too, if she wants to stay in the same apartment. But that first night, I believe a third of the Fulbright grantees left. And by Tuesday of like the following week, almost everyone left except for me, Gwen, and like 4 other people out of our cohort of like 12 plus like 8 researchers. So at this point, I was like, okay, I've made my decision. The last commercial flight out of Morocco to the US left on like Tuesday. And then that night, I get a message from a friend of mine I've had at UCLA who I've not spoken to in months. She now works for an airline. She's like, Ani, are you still in Morocco? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, Morocco put it in a travel ban, right? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. They can roll it back. And she's like, the travel ban is for 6 months. They're like, unless Corona is going to be cured in the next month, they are not going to be rolling it back. And that's when I'm like, yeah, I was confronted with like the reality of my situation. Like, I didn't want to be in Morocco until September. Like, I had plans for what I was going to do afterwards. And those plans did not include being in Morocco without any income, without the support of the Fulbright program and other things. So I'm like, I think I need to leave. It's a tough decision, but I need to leave. So I called Fulbright and like, I want to leave. And they're like, well, unluckily for you, the last commercial flight just left, but luckily for you, we can put you on the embassy's repatriation list for Americans who were not able to get out on a commercial flight. So you can be evacuated by like the US military.
Whoa.
So did not get to experience that. But then I told Gwen, and I'm like, Gwen, I'm going to be leaving. And then she was mad at me because she would have to pay like $700 a month in rent because, we pay for our apartments together, and we both decided that we're going to shelter in place in Morocco. So it's like, essentially I took that choice away from her. So we ended up spending like that night packing our bags and then having to take a cab to Casablanca. And then from there, just like waiting it out until Fulbright calls and gives us like our flight information. It could have been like waiting as little as like 5 hours to like 2 weeks. So then Fulbright calls the next morning, like, okay, the Europeans are repatriating tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are gonna have to get on a flight from like Rabat to Paris, and then from Paris you fly to like Boston, then to like JFK, and then LA and other like places. So I ended up having to make like almost like a 5-stop flight.
Oh, that's
like
why.
literally spent 2 days in transit, but
Yeah. Oh, ouch.
yeah, but we got out, and Gwen was like, I'm so happy that we left when we did, because like the situation in Morocco could turn dire. Like over there, it's like people do not practice social distancing. It's like they kiss strangers. I've seen people like selling food outside. Like I saw a guy like sneeze into his hand and then like use that and then stir food with the same hand.
Oh God. Okay.
So I'm like, okay, this country is like literally like a powder keg about to go off, and there's only 3,000 ventilators in the entire country.
Wow.
And I'm kind of happy I did get, like, I was a bit upset because I had to give up my luxurious lifestyle there and have to go back to sleeping in a child's bed.
Oh. Yeah, that's right. I remember your bed. It's okay.
I believe it might be the oldest piece of furniture in the house. Yeah. And my internship for the summer got canceled, and that was one of the primary factors of me coming to the US, because I'm like, if I'm in the US, if I'm in LA, they're not going to cancel domestic flights. So at some point in June, I can just buy a flight to DC and then just like go and do my internship there. Versus if I was in Morocco and they have a travel van, I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to get to my internship site.
True.
That, and what else? Then Fulbright ended up cutting the insurance of students who stayed, or what am I calling them students for? Of people who like stayed behind in Morocco. And from what I hear, it's like their situation isn't that good either. Like some Fulbrighters from Morocco and from other countries have like taken the time and like written op-eds. So there's like definitely like articles circulating around if you want like extra information on that. But overall, I feel like they shouldn't have given us the choice of voluntarily leave or stay. I feel like it should have been uniform. It should have been either everyone leaves or just everyone temporarily stays, or something like that. I don't like the way that they framed it, that as if we had a choice in the matter.
Yeah, it was confusing early on because my school didn't know if they should, continue, in class sessions or make it online. So they extended my spring break by like a month. So it was pretty nice. But during that time, they were transforming the online system. So yeah, it was a confusing time back in March. So I understand, but it does suck. So
yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, guys, apply to Fulbright. It's a great program.
Okay. Yeah.
But like, research the countries that you're thinking about applying to, because like you're going to be living there for like upwards of a year. If it's not a country you can be there for that long, maybe reconsider.
How easy is it to get in, or difficult?
Get it? I don't think it's that difficult to get it, but then again, I'm speaking from like my own experience. Like for most Middle Eastern countries, it is pretty competitive because a lot of people want to be in the Middle East for some reason. But you can go onto the Fulbright website, look at the statistics for each country. And some countries, like, you have like as good as like a 50-50 chance of getting in, because they have like either don't have enough people applying or they have a lot of spots open. Like, I know some countries like Malaysia, what else? Like Belarus, Bulgaria, they have like spots left over every year because they don't have enough people applying.
Mm.
So it's definitely like looking into what's available, what you want from your experience, what you can offer.
That's good. Yeah, that is a good program. I looked into it too, and the Peace Corps as well. But
if you're gonna do the Peace Corps, I would recommend not going to going to a country that's more on the side of developed rather than developing.
Yeah.
Like, I've met some Peace Corps people in Morocco.
How were they?
Like, the things that I think are necessities, they think are luxuries.
Oh.
Like, one of them did stay over at my apartment, and he's like, "Your shower is so wonderful," and I'm like, "My shower literally goes has icy cold or like boiling hot as an option." He's like, "Well, it beats the bucket, that's for sure."
Oh, dang. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, true.
But if you were to end up in a country where like China, Armenia, Bolivia, that are like more on the developed side, I'm pretty sure your experience could be a lot more comfortable than if you're in Morocco or somewhere like Mali or Guinea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, it was great talking to you. Do you want to plug your social media or anything?
You asked at the most inopportune moment because I'm on a social media cleanse.
Okay.
Again.
But even, yeah, that's totally fine. But even then, I'll find your social media and I'll just link it to this video whenever I post it. All right. Yeah. What time do you go running? So I can like find
in the morning.
Oh, okay. Too early.
6 a.m.
Yeah, too early. Okay, but we'll go walking one of these days if you want, if you're comfortable.
All right, sounds good. I'll hold you to that.
Okay, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for sharing.